The greatest nation on earth, America. We have the most amazing people that put their faith and this nation above all. The American Frontline Podcast has special guests such as our military, first responders, and local elected officials to speak about how they continue to support the nation we all love and live in. Welcome to the American Frontline Podcast with TJ Falah, proudly sponsored by FireNews.com. That was the great new intro created by Anthony Barone, our producer. Welcome to the American Frontline Podcast, hosted by me, TJ Falah. We're going to leave off where America Comes First left off. So, the fifth guest on the show is the Assemblyman of the 3rd District. I would like to welcome Joe DeStefano to the show. Joe, welcome.
Thank you, TJ. It's an honor to be here, to be on your new named show.
Yes, and I want to mention that he is the first guest on the new show with the new name, which is fantastic. Okay. Dominic Thorne was the first guest, and now you were the first guest on the brand new show.
Thank you.
So, well, I'd like to welcome you, and I'd like to start by asking you a couple questions. So let's start from the beginning. Why did you want to get involved in elected office?
Well, it all started way back when I was like 19 years old. I became a volunteer fireman in Medford. And after serving approximately 15 years in the volunteer fire service, I ran for lieutenant. I ran and I won. And after a number of years, I realized that my career had to take a different path because I came up with a couple of health issues that I was no longer going to be able to be an interior firefighter anymore. So I decided to go the other way into the administrative side of things, and I became a commissioner. So I was one of the youngest commissioners elected in the fire service as a commissioner, and then there's been a lot more since then. But I just thought public service was my calling, and it started back when I was in my mid-30s, and I served. I'm finishing out my 30th year as being a fire commissioner. I am retiring this year. I am done being a commissioner, but I'm still a volunteer for 46 years, and I did 30 years in the sheriff's office, 27 years in the sheriff's office and police department, and I've always been involved in public advocacy. And being a fire commissioner and being a union leader, I was a union president for the sheriff probation unit. I always felt that my career always took me into the advocacy of advocating for people. So it was like a step-by-step kind of a situation where I got to this point, then I got to that point, and everything I did along the way kind of groomed me for going into the next level of advocacy. And, it was in Medford. Now it's for the 3rd Assembly District, which goes from the west in Holtzville all the way out to Mastic Beach and kind of everything in between. Bellport, East Patchogue, Yaphank, Medford, Ridge, Middle Island. Those are kind of like the areas that I cover. But being involved in civil service, being involved with chambers of commerce, being involved with civic associations, I realized that my life was taking me in that direction where they needed someone to advocate. We call it the voice of the voiceless and stuff like that. And being that my career has always been where I've always been for the people, advocating for them, always making sure that they got what they needed and things like that. And being in the fire service, making sure the firefighters had their. I was also a director in the Medford ambulance, knowing that they needed the stuff that they needed to do their job. So it kind of like kept on mutating into something else over the years.
Yeah, 100%. And I would say that being a first responder yourself, that is definitely boosted your career in public service. It definitely helps you understand the public a lot better. A lot of people don't understand that. Like, there's elected officials out there that do fantastic, but they're not in the first responder service. I believe that gives you an advantage on your perspective of the community.
And it's pretty funny you say that, because when I got to Albany 7 years ago, I had just walked in the door, and because my reputation preceded me, I guess, and they kind of knew that I came from labor, I came from the fire and EMS world and stuff like that. Whenever there was a topic that needed to be addressed, they would come to me. I wasn't there for 4 hours, and they were already asking me questions about, what do you think about this? And what do you think about that? So I felt pretty honored that because of my career in the fire and EMS world, that they came to me and asked for my opinion on certain bills that were going to be coming up and stuff, and how I would vote on them. And I kind of got the direction, which kind of led me into the committees that I kind of serve on presently, including the Governmental Employees Committee, which I am the ranking member of that committee. Where they come to me for my advice and what I feel and what my opinions are. And, I think that that's an honor and a privilege to be able to be on those committees where I can advocate for the things that I've done in my life and to advocate it for the people throughout the state of New York.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely fantastic. So tell me about your role as an assemblyman.
Okay, so what we do is, the first thing I want to let everybody know is that I wasn't born to be an assemblyman, just so everybody's aware of that. You learn as you go, kind of a thing. What I do is I get a lot of the ideas that I present in Albany for bills to come from the home district, from the people that I represent. We kind of say, if you have a law that you'd like to see passed, or if there's some kind of a resolution recognizing certain issues, like we have really in-depth resolutions about dystonia, severe asthma, scleroderma, which is what my mom had issues with, and things like that. So when you want somebody to recognize things like that, they come to me and I make it go through the process in Albany to get it addressed. Sometimes, like in most cases, in this state, there's one party rule. So you have to learn how to be able to get along with other people that are not of your own political persuasion.
Right.
And that's very, very important, because when you go and knocking on doors and you talk to people and asking for their vote, they want to know how you vote on certain issues. They don't want to hear partisanship. They want to know, how are you going to get things done? And my answer always is that you have to work with everyone. You just can't be one-sided. You have to hear what people say. And I think that's one of my better qualities, is that I can listen to people. I can understand what they're saying. And, I can't always vote the way sometimes I feel like I want to vote, because I remember when I first got to Albany, the first thing they said to me is that you got to vote the way the people back home would expect you to vote, because they are the reason why you're here. I've always lived by that. Every day, I've always lived by that, because it's not always what I think. It's not always how I feel. It's what the people back home need that I really think needs to be addressed. And honestly and truly, it's one of those things where I put it in my heart, that my heart, there's a new thing that's going on right now with the medical aid in dying. The governor's about to sign that. She wants some changes to it, but it's one of those things where I can't support that. I actually had that in my life. My mom and dad were in that situation, and I didn't have that opportunity, and I don't think I would have taken it, because I'm a very stern believer in the right to life. I grew up Catholic, and I still believe that way. And if there's a miracle that could happen, that we are always taught to pray and see if we can get a miracle to happen. And that's how I believe. But those are the hard things. Those are hard decisions, because I understand both sides of it. Like I said, I experienced it on my own family. But I understand it, but I just can't support it, because I believe there's the right to life. And that's why I didn't vote for it when it came up in the assembly.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with you. I mean, my mom would be a perfect example. She had gone into, I believe that you've heard the story, but she had gone into arrest secondary to tumors that were growing in her lungs. And she was essentially, on her deathbed, and they put her on palliative care, and she had a miracle healing. I'm a Christian. She had a miracle healing, and she went and got scans. Everything was gone. She has little tiny nodules left, like very small, but they're benign,
Right.
And it's amazing. But think about that. Think about if that had passed, not that she would ever take this route, but think about if that was something that was, feasible and allowed, like if her life was taken from that and she could have been healed or had a miracle,
Right.
I don't support it either. I saw it in the news the other day and I was in shock.
No.
I said, I can't believe that this is a thing right now.
Listen, I understand people have what they believe and what they think and stuff like that. And all I do is I say to people, respect the other person's opinion. I respect those who believe that. I don't support it. That's
Right.
all. But we all have differences of opinion and stuff like that.
Of course.
Why does it become so divided that if you don't believe one way, then you're an outcast? Or, everybody has their own way of thinking. Why can't we just put our points of view out there and, just believe in what you believe in, and, that you don't have to support it. But if that's your belief, that's your belief.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
100%. So what would you say, being in Albany, what would you say is one of the biggest challenges that is facing New Yorkers right now?
Well, of course, the cost of living. And a typical example of that is when I got elected 7 years ago, my first budget was $169 billion for a state budget. This past year, the one we just gone through, $256 billion. In my world, that's almost $90 billion more 7 years later. I know that we have a 2% tax cap, but I guess it affects everybody except the state of New York and some other entities that totally ignore that. And we can't. The bottom line is we have to start putting money in the right places. I think that's more importantly than just keep on giving everything away. I'm being a volunteer, as you know, TJ, as being one yourself. you know that community activism and things that are good for your community, you know that that's the way to spend your money, is to support small businesses, creating jobs, things like that. Giving things away because it's the right thing to do, I don't always agree with that. I think that the people in need deserve to get what they need. I got that. But when you hear people are flocking to New York State to get free everything, you know, that doesn't sit well with me, because the people who live here, who have actually lived here their whole life, maybe they came here 10 years ago. I consider them New Yorkers, but people who come here because we have the best Medicaid services, we have the best social services, things like that, they know that. And our taxpayers are now paying for out-of-staters to come here to get care because their state doesn't offer it. So they come here to get it. I think that that's the wrong approach. And I think we shouldn't just give money away just for the sake of giving money away. I think that our hospitals, our Medicaid system is broken. That needs to be fixed. Our reimbursement rates need to be addressed. I just got on Medicare myself. I never had any issues when I had my county insurance. Now I have issues in Medicare now because I'm now 65 and now I pay that, which I never did before. So there's things that are broken. And do I believe everybody should have health care? I believe everybody should have health care. When you go to the hospital, you're going to get care. They can't turn you away. So that's where, to me, where it starts and it ends. I mean, whatever you do after that, that's up to you.
Right.
But when you go to a hospital, you're going to get care. And why should they not be at least reimbursed for the care that they're giving to people because they just walk in the door and they have no insurance?
It's true. And like you look at Canada and these other places that have, you know, universal health care, and you see that the hospitals and the doctor's offices and everything are backed up, because everybody is flocking because it's free. I mean, you don't have to pay for anything. So, yes, I believe everybody should have healthcare as well, 100%. But, you know, as you know, and as I know, it wouldn't work, you know, in New York State, and it wouldn't work in America when people believe in universal healthcare.
So I had a procedure done a couple of months ago, and the doctor sent me a letter this week and said, I need to make a follow-up appointment. Okay. So I called his office up, and the earliest regular appointment I could get is in May. Here we are in December, and I have to wait until May to see him. Wow. I mean, think about that.
Yeah.
Now, if it was an emergency, I probably can get in sooner, but because it's just a regular follow-up visit, I have to wait until May to do that. So think about how backed up these doctors are getting because they're overwhelmed, and, you know, we have to fix that system for everybody.
Yeah. And seeing the hospitals now too, like, especially like with me responding on calls, you know, I go to the local hospitals all the time, and I see stretchers are out the doors. The hospitals are packed out. The nurses are stressed. You know, a lot of people are, you know, healthcare is getting overwhelmed, especially with everybody being sick lately. And I guess this winter, I mean, there's a lot of stuff going around.
Yeah, my daughter's a nurse. She lives in North Carolina, and she says to me, it's crazy. You know, my chief of staff's husband needed to go there not too long ago. And there's stretchers everywhere. You know, the ERs are full. You know, we're very lucky that the hospital that we respond to every now and again is in the trauma system now, which is great for the community, because, you know, Stony Brook was the only one that we kind of had. And, you know, sometimes it was a gut call on which way to go on something like that. But you know, we everybody always complained about the hospital that we have in our community. I never really complained. I've been there several times myself, and from experience, I can tell you I've never had an issue. When I went to the ER, they diagnosed me and they sent me where I needed to go, and I had no issues with the hospital that we have here in East Patchogue. Yeah,
neither have I. I mean, I've been there a couple of times myself, and I've always gotten excellent care. I think that they do a very nice job. NYU recently took over the hospital, correct, and I think that they're trying their best to take on the influx of patients that they've been getting, and they have a lot of new systems that are going into play. The nurses and stuff like that are adjusting to everything, and I really think that everybody there, like, I know most of the doctors and nurses personally, I can tell you right now, those people give some of the best care, probably, I would say, in the nation.
Yeah.
They really do a fantastic job. I have a special place
in my heart for this hospital. It's done a lot for me and my family. And, you know, we were there a couple of weeks ago, you know, to present them with a proclamation for what they're doing over there. And they're opening up new wings. They're building a new facility kind of next to it and stuff like that. When they became a heart hospital, kind of, sort of, I had my stents done over there. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I had a very good relationship with the hospital, and I would support them 100% or whatever is needed. But again, the bad rap has to come off, because I know there's some people that do have some bad experiences, but they are doing very well now, and being now a trauma center really is going to help. I think they're going to try and bring back the OB/GYN program again, but it's going to take time. People need to have patience, but they are trying to do the right thing by the community.
They are. And I think that a lot of people, just for some reason, like to listen to what other people say. Some people that have not even been to the hospital themselves, and they hear, oh, it's terrible, it's not good. But it really is good. A lot of people that think that it's not good, they'll tell me when I go on a call, I don't want to go here, I don't think it's good. They'll go there. I'll maybe see them a week later or something like that in passing. And they'll be like, I have to say, actually, I really thought that hospital did a very nice job. Oh. So they provide very good care.
No argument from me.
Yeah.
Guaranteed.
So you told me that, well, obviously your office is up in Albany. Yeah. So how long are you up in Albany typically per year?
Well, our first day of session this year is going to be January 7th. It's a Wednesday. It's usually the first Wednesday after the first Tuesday, or the first Wednesday after the first of the year, some kind of formula.
Right.
And I'll leave probably Monday to go up there, because we have to do some pre-stuff before the session starts. So typically it's a 3 or a 4 day week. So I'll go up on a Sunday. We start on Monday, we're done either Wednesday or Thursday, depending on the week. Sometimes it goes all week. When we get into budget season, we do a 5-day week when it gets into budget season. But that goes on from January to June. And it's typically 3 or 4 days every week, and from Sunday to whenever the week ends, Wednesday or Thursday, depending.
Okay, yeah. And I'm sure the commute is very long up there sometimes.
207 miles. I have to put it in every week. So each way it's 207 miles for me, door to door.
I know. And I'm going to DC in January, and I was looking at the drive, and I'm like, it's not too bad. It's 4.5 hours.
I flew the last time I went to DC. It wasn't terrible.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I flew the first time I went too. And then so my flight got canceled, and I had to take Amtrak back. And I had never taken an Amtrak in my life. And I get on the train, and I actually kind of liked it. I'm not going to lie, taking the train.
Well, they make it very comfortable now. You have a computer. They have the ports for you. They have to plug your phone in and things like that. So they make it so if you're doing business, which a lot of people take the Amtrak to either Boston or Washington or whatever, and they do a lot of business. And business people do the same thing. They plug in their phones and they do work. And honestly, I did it to Albany once. It was the most relaxing ride I ever had. I don't have to worry about the lights, the traffic, craziness going on the road. It was really pretty relaxed, and it wasn't that expensive.
Yeah, no, it's not. I took, I think I did I don't know what the classes are. I can't even remember what the classes are called. I think I did like business first, or like business or something like that. But it was so comfortable. Like you had to lay down. I didn't go to sleep, but you have like a lay down seat. You have, just like you said, it was a really, really nice ride. Right. So I was thinking, I'm going with a bunch of people, so I got to drive, but so, but yeah, I'm sure
you like to drive.
Yeah, I do. I drive everywhere. So, we were talking before about, party lines and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And we were talking about sometimes, well, you're a Republican, obviously, and we have to work with the Democrats a lot on a lot of different topics and stuff like that. Absolutely. How would you say you work with them during decisive times?
Well, being the ranking member of governmental employees, you don't take sides. You can't take sides. You have to do what's right for the constituents and the people that you represent, as I said earlier. Now, a lot of bills that I've had as a Republican, I've had to give to the Democrats to get them passed. To me, the most disservice that goes on in this state is something like that, because why would I have a great bill that eventually gets passed once I give it to a Democrat? Why does it get passed once I give it away? But when my name is on it as a Republican, it doesn't happen. To me, that shows the disparity in our government, how they will not let any good bills that somebody from the other party brings up, but once it goes over to the Democrat side, or the other side, if you will, then it gets unanimous support. And to me, that's the wrong way to approach things. If it's a good bill, it's a good bill for everybody, not because a Democrat or a Republican, if it was the other way around, brought it up. It should be bipartisan. There's a couple of things in my life that I do not believe are partisan. Public safety is number one in my eyes. That should never be a partisan issue. That the public safety is the thing that we should be all concerned about. And to me, that's the biggest topic that I always will support no matter what. I'm a bipartisan. I do it all the time. I vote with the other side a lot. Sometimes I may get in trouble for it, but some common sense is my way of thinking. If it sounds right and it's the right thing to do for the constituents I represent, not party lines all the time, but the constituents. If I hear from my office that there's a problem with something that my party supports, I won't support it. I just won't. And there have been some things that I've had not to support. And I think that puts me on the other side of things, where it's like I'm a free thinker. And if it makes sense to me, I'm going to support it. If it doesn't make sense to me, no matter who brings it up, I'm not going to support it.
Right.
And that's why I'm different.
So what would you say are the best qualities of the district that you serve?
Diversified. I have a very diverse district. We have high quality, we have middle quality, we have low quality, but every community that I represent is unique. We have some summerside resorts, we have middle of the road, we have high end, we have pretty much everything. But the needs are all different. In different communities, they're all different. And everybody that we deal with, all the community, the civic associations, the Chamber of Commerce, everybody has the same goal. Mm-hmm. Everybody, the quality of life. To me, you could talk about economy, you could talk about quality. That to me is probably the biggest thing that people kind of worry about, is the quality of life in the communities that they represent. We have a great working relationship with the 3 PDs that the precincts that I have, 5, 6, and 7. Mm-hmm. We know the commanders. We know a lot of the officers. We deal with them. We do events with them. People love to be involved in community stuff. I think that's probably one of the most happiest things that I get to do during this time that I'm serving as the assemblyman in this district, is to get to know the people and know what it is that makes them tick. We have a trick or treat event. We go to blood drives. We Narcan. Everything we can think of. Libraries. I love my libraries. Everybody knows I love my library. We love our senior citizens. It's so diverse. And like I said, there are special in Mass Lake Beach. We have flooding issues. We have homelessness. We have things like that in pretty much all around the district. But the bottom line is my job and my staff's job, and I can't give enough kudos to my staff. They're much more patient than I am. I got to be honest with you. They will sit there and they will listen to people for a half an hour about, and I think sometimes people just want to talk and let somebody's listening on the other side. A lot of times, I can't even tell you how many times it's happened to me, where you call a municipality, you call a town or a village or whoever, a state organization, county, federal, it doesn't matter. And you dial 1 for this, dial 2 for that, dial 3 for this, garbage. You call my office. If we're not in the office, you're going to get an answering machine. But as soon as the office is attended, they will listen to the messages and they will get back to you. How many times have people been calling and they just get rerouted to somebody else? During the pandemic, which is kind of like when my whole career started in the assembly, my office was manned. It wasn't fully staffed, but we had somebody in my staff every single day during the pandemic. People from Rochester and Buffalo and Syracuse called, and my office was one of the only offices that picked up the phone. So I'm very proud of that accomplishment, and I am very proud of my staff who will actually deal with constituents, whether they're ours or not. We will always handle a complaint. We will tell the complainant what it is that we did. This is what they need to do going forward to make sure that their complaints have been addressed. That's what makes my office superior to many others that we talk to, because my office calls other electeds. I'm not going to say who or where, but the bottom line is there's some places that they don't answer the phone, and they don't have an answering machine either. So why? It's to me, that's what we're elected to do. That's why you pick very good staff to deal with those issues that the constituents have. Sometimes we can fix them right away. Sometimes it takes longer. We all have liaisons that we deal with all the facets of government. Some of them are not as good as my office is. But my office handles all the complaints, and I have a very small office. I have 2 full-timers and a couple of part-timers. That's it. And we deal with approximately 100 to 130,000 constituents in my district. It's a lot of district. Whether it's a federal, county, town, doesn't matter. We will handle anybody's complaint and send it to the place it needs to go to. And then we tell the constituent how to follow up to see where their complaint is being handled.
Yeah, and I think that your office truly, and I'm not just saying this because you're here, does an amazing job. I've always heard great things about your office.
And I agree, and that's why I take care of my office. I think they're wonderful people, good family people, and they get the job done. And it's not a personal thing that they have to be accoladed for it, because I always give my staff accolades because I think what they do is great, and I always recognize them from, no matter where I go, whoever I speak to, I said, I always recognize Alice, my chief of staff, and Matthew.
She's here, by the way. She's over there.
Yeah, she's listening to me. She's blushing. She's blushing. But But in any case, no, and I think that's where it all starts. Everybody will say that, when they work for somebody, the person that's in charge or the boss or whatever, it's not the boss. It's the people who work for the boss, because they're the ones that actually do the work. They're the ones that take the grenades, as we sometimes call it. I said, Alice, I'm taking grenades out here. She said, no, I'm taking grenades in here in the office. And it's true, right? Isn't that what we say? But it's true. And we work there, and we're really like family. Honestly and truly, we treat each other like family. We like each other. We socialize with each other. I mean, we have a good time. Our families know each other, get along with each other, go to church together. I mean, it's one of those
It's
things.
the best environment to have.
Yeah, listen, I've been in places where you don't get along with the people you work with, and it's not as a happy place.
Yeah.
It's sometimes not. But, I'm very fortunate, and I will say that until the dying day, that I am very fortunate to have what I have.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, you guys really do a fantastic job out there, seriously. So I will say to you now that you have had and still have such an amazing career. What would be advice that you give to somebody looking to make a difference in their community or maybe seek elected office in the future?
I think one of the things that starting younger, I think, as I go to meetings, civic meetings, fire meetings, commissioner meetings, things like that, the people in the room, their hair is getting severely gray or bald. That's what I think we as elected, and every time I go in and speak to kids in the high school or wherever I see a group of kids or younger people, I always try to tell them to get involved, join an organization, join something. I love the music, the kids that come up and see me in Albany from the schools. We have such a great time together. They see all the artifacts in Albany and things like that. I said, get them interested. You got to get younger people interested. The fire service, EMS, all of them. We're aging out, and people, when they get to a certain age, or a certain point in their life where they want to do something else, or, they've had enough, they've done 30, 40, 50 years of something and they want to relax or whatever. I don't see me ever doing that, but I'm just saying there's a lot of people that want to do that. But I think the way is to get involved. When I was 19, as I said, I joined the fire department. I got involved in the community. I started to see what was going on. I started to advocate for the people I became a lieutenant, I became a commissioner, and it just, once you learn the experience, once you get to know the people that you're dealing with, the friends you make along the way. I can't even tell you the amount of people that I met being a union leader for a number of years, a union president, and working with the unions and labor and things like that. It's one of those things that once it starts, it just keeps rolling from there. Once you get involved, as you're finding out, you're going to meet people. They're going to introduce you to different things, avenues to get into. And you make your own decision, whether you want to go that route or go somewhere else. It's up to you. It's your life. You do what you want with it. And I think, and I'm going to say it because it's the truth. I got to give kudos to Alice as being my chief of staff. I got to give kudos to my wife and family, my daughter, my son. Everything that I've ever wanted to do along the way, they've always supported. My wife to this day, she says, as long as you're happy, she's happy. And I can't say enough good things about her for that. I was motivated to do other things along the way, and she always supported that. And for that, I'm very grateful. Married 41 years, going to be 42 in July. Not always a happy time, as we all know, and, not always great things, but, for the most part, lasting all those years, we found a way to make it work. We found a way to make it work. And, raising two kids, we have two grandchildren now. It's all about family, community, and the people that I represent. And that's what makes me keep going, honestly.
Absolutely. Well, listen, I think that we had a very amazing show today, and you were the first guest on the American Frontline Podcast, which is awesome.
I'm very honored and privileged to be that first guest, and I will always remember that. And whenever you send me the recording, I will make sure that I keep that somewhere.
Oh, absolutely. I'll send him, Anthony, let's get him a tape. We'll get him a tape to take home.
But no, I appreciate it. And you're doing great things, and I hear a lot of good stuff from outside of, our regular people that we talk to, that you're doing a great job, and they see you going places as well. And I'm looking forward to helping you go through that.
Thank you so much.
Right.
Well, I'm so glad to have Joe DeStefano on the show today. And thank you guys so much for tuning into the American Frontline Podcast. I'm TJ Falah. Take care. America. the greatest nation on earth. We have the most amazing people that put their faith and this nation above all. The American Frontline Podcast welcomes special guests such as our military, first responders, and local elected officials to speak about how they continue to support the nation we all love and live in. Join me every month when we talk to these amazing guests on the American Frontline Podcast with TJ Filato, proudly sponsored by FireNews.com.